Whoa, this is the Illusion reporting from somewhere on Spaceship Earth. I'm in the Skyline Ridge Nature Preserve. I'm on some old, probably logging road. You know, I'm in a forest that is fully recovered from the abuses of mankind, if you will. You know, it's funny. The last video I made in the forest, I was in an old growth forest. So I'm in a second growth forest here. The animals, I can hear the birds. I can hear some frogs down in there. I'm on a dead end trail. In fact, the camera's hanging on the end of the trail sign. And the reason I picked the dead end trail was to come down into this drainage and just kind of get away from the people, right? Isn't that the whole reason you go into nature, is to clean up your energy field? And it's a lot out there. It's a lot out there up in the world of the parking lots and the roads and the weekend and all of it, you know? And to come back here to be in my natural state. You see, I am of this earth. I am part of this environment, this world. How I interact with it is totally up to me. I can come and take from it. It will freely give itself of it. It will give me its resources, its flora, its fauna. It will give me food to eat. It will give me lumber to make things with and house myself with. It will give me medicines and all sorts of stuff, because it's a reflection of God. See, that's the thing, is we forget that God created all of this for us to see his majesty, his beauty, his love for us, right? And as much as this environment isn't that concerned about us, it loves us, it loves me. It's, if I fall and hit my head, it's not going to do anything for me. It's just going to absorb me. And I find that to be very peaceful. You know, I was reflecting with a friend of mine the other day. It's, you know, we live in a society or a culture that fears the inevitable expiration of the body, the spacesuit. You know, eventually I too will pass into dust. And that's okay. And being here lets me know that that's okay, because all of this is just the loop of life, you know? And again, and that is the majesty and the beauty of God in every molecule, every electromagnetic frequency exchange between me and all these trees and leaves and ferns and smells and fresh air and sounds and sights. You know, when you're in nature, you're completely immersed in the 3D, 5 sense, multidimensional, infinite possibility of God. I can smell God. I can see God. I can hear God. I can feel God. I could put this in my mouth and taste God, you know? The water is down here. And this is our home, Spaceship Earth, not the little buildings we inhabit. And, you know, we're at some sort of crossroads, some jumping off point of humanity, whether we choose to abandon this for the artificial structures, you know, because this is our home. The artificial structures are really not our home. They're just our dwellings. They're just places to get us out of the elements for when it's too hot or too cold. They're not our life, though we're being convinced to make them our life. That is the paradigm we're in with the face diapers and the restrictions and the loss of freedom is to convince us that our little cells that we call home is our home. Well, this is our home, and we have to acknowledge our interconnectivity with this home of ours, spaceship Earth, because this is God. And God is in our dwelling too. But if we stay in our dwelling, we miss all this electromagnetic energy, all of this reflection that we get to see back in ourselves. Like, so when we're in our dwellings, we're reflecting back at a constructed world made by man versus this made by God. And that's why it's super important to get out into nature. It's super important to leave the dwelling. And I think that it's difficult on a lot of levels, because when we come out here, we discover that truth, if we choose to acknowledge it, that this is the brutality of love. You know what I mean? Like, there's no days off, spiritually speaking. There's no days off anymore. It's constant survival, but it's always been constant survival. That has always been a false premise, that the dwellings and the infrastructure of these cities and economies isn't anything but the daily struggle. But here it is manifested as peaceful but real. You know what I mean? One wrong turn, one sprained ankle, one, branch from above, and it gets real quick. So I find that I'm more at ease out here than in there, because they're trying to force us in when we need to go out. But again, it's a question of God, which is infinite, or attachment to the spacesuit. The only reason you're doing this and you're staying inside is because you value your spacesuit more than you value God's abundance. And I get it. We need to make our decisions. We need to raise our children and protect our elderly and all of these things. But at the end of the day, God is offering us ultimate abundance, ultimate love, the ultimate home. But because of the dwelling mentality, we've kind of abandoned our real home, and we've sort of trashed it to build these artificial structures called dwellings out of, somewhat questionable materials, and we're at the big crossroads. I don't know how else to put it. It is we get to choose. We get to choose to live in fear of the inevitable, or embrace the relationship with the inevitable. And it's a choice of what that inevitable is for many people, it is a loss. For many of us, it is a gain. You know what I mean? What is the inevitable is based upon how do you perceive the half full glass of water. See, when I'm in here, the half full glass of water is brimming over with water, and it's still half full. When I'm in the dwelling, the fear thing, I'm in an empty glass of water, and it's still half full. So again, it's fear versus love. It's abundance versus lack. It's hate versus forgiveness. It's very obvious nowadays for those of us who are paying attention. And yet it really becomes clear out here where it's still, but the tracks of the previous mentality are right here. I mean, look right there. This was an old logging road. So once upon a time, that logging road wasn't made with with relationship. It was made with anti-relationship, though it was a relationship on a weird way. You know, I can't condemn the logging road, yet there it goes. It disappears. It melts back into the thing. It is what it is. I am just a passenger on this spaceship. There's an airplane flying above. I don't know. I can judge this logging road negatively, or I can judge this logging road for what it is as just a remnant of a different concept. Maybe that logging road was built out of full abundance. You know what I mean? Different times, different places, but here we are in 2020, and that logging road isn't about extracting resources. It is about returning back to the natural state, because it's always been in its natural state. It's just morphed from one hillside into a flat space for vehicles or horse-drawn carriages or whatever it may be, and now it's melting back into its natural slope, if you will. I don't know. I kind of lost my train of thought with the logging road, but I think you're getting what I'm saying. Is we have to I guess we have to accept our footprint here, because our footprint isn't bad. It's what we do with our footprint. It is if we choose to live in fear of our footprint, we're just making mud, if you will. We're just stamping down in our footprint, versus like, what is it? You know, walk softly, right? Walk softly, tread lightly. I don't know. That's the time we're in. We get to make this decision. The fear staying in the dwelling seems to be a tread heavy maneuver. The reflecting in God's glory seems to be the tread lightly maneuver. It's about respecting the gift that is this perfect spaceship, this perfect abundance, and remembering that we're not renters here. We're not renters. We don't have to ask permission to be here. We are granted full sovereignty by God to inhabit this planet. But when we abuse it, when we destroy God's reflection, you know, do we lose our sovereignty? I think so. And so we're at the crossroads. And how many times do you say crossroads in one video? But the point is if you live in fear and you turn over your sovereignty to these systems, if you will, you're not helping this, dude, because you are a part of this. The thing is, it's about taking responsibility for this and treading softly in God's grace through it. I don't know. I feel quite at home right now, right here. I could just forever melt into this space. And yet I know that I need to pick myself up and walk out of this canyon back to the vehicle and head home to take care of my children and my wife and myself and my community, and continue to put out the message that there's no need to be afraid of anything. God assures us of that. God shows us that anything can be recovered from. That's what this logging road's about. This logging road is an example of the recovery, right? People used to fear the forest once upon a time. The forest was something to be conquered. We don't live in that mentality anymore. I think on a lot of levels, but where we need to learn that lesson of what this logging road represents is in our relationship with society, the inevitable, and God. We have to stop fighting it and abusing it and realize that we're in total harmony with it if we choose to be. Anyway, this is The Illusion, trying to explore the balance of my relationship with Spaceship Earth and God's grace and abundance, and try to share that message with you. So thank you for hanging out with me. God bless you. Have a beautiful, beautiful evening, day, morning, afternoon, trip through reality.